Hello everyone, I'm Chara and welcome back to my creepy Catwalk commentary, the show where I discuss each and every episode of the Dragula Brothers Dragula Season 5. Honestly, thank God we're in the back half of this season because, quite frankly, I cannot wait for it to be over. I am exhausted. If y'all thought episode 4 was a frustrating watch, just wait until we get into episode 6. This week's episode is titled Into the Beyond, so just based on that, I'm already expecting something spacey. And based on the opening scene that we get, they're using phrasing that would indicate there's a lot of Rocky Horror space. So I'm expecting this to be something a little more campy, a little more silly, goofy, not necessarily like creepy. So I'm intrigued. We'll see how this goes. Everyone comes back into the lab. Everybody's thinking Neo's gonna come back just based on track record. There was no other way they were gonna keep Anna at this point. As much as she was trying to bring more of herself into the competition, she just wasn't doing it at a fast enough rate to keep up. Hulu walks in, she and Orc have a little moment, and again, enough of the frickin' romance storyline. I'm done with it. I'm tired of it. I don't even care if it's like a little side moment like this, and then Fantasia has a talking head where she talks about how she thinks they're screwing each other. I don't care. Legitimately, is there anybody out there who watches the show in hopes that a romance will develop out of the monsters on this? If you do, tell me in the comments, because quite frankly, I think you should be studied, you know, for science. And then surprise, surprise, we've got Throb, Mr. Microaggression Zombie, coming at JK. They're saying it's all because Jay took out Jarvis in the lip sync, so Throb is going to avenge Jarvis by making sure Jay goes home. In the same way that the don't touch me because I'm sensitive, teehee, felt like a way for them to come at Jay through like a thinly veiled joke. To me as a viewer, this just felt like Throb using Jarvis as an excuse to come at Jay. Every single season, there's one person who's always like the proverbial punching bag of the cast. This year it's JK. And then Orgotic jumps into the conversation and decides to say, you don't deserve to be here. You being here is taking the spot of somebody talented. That comment did not sit well with me as a viewer the first time around. Then going back and listening to the Boulay Brothers podcast because they dropped it the night the episode came out, that's saying something. That feels like they're trying to get ahead of controversy that could come out of this episode. They're trying to get ahead of some of the criticism that the show has had regarding Jay in particular and how Jay's being treated. There's a couple of things that the Boulays try to write off in this podcast. Number one, they're trying to write up Orgotic's comment as saying, well, English is Orgotic's second language, and there's some context and some delivery things that might not like come across the same way. Because of that, Orgotic not being a native English speaker, when Orgotic does speak English, they sometimes come across very blunt because they don't have the right words to say what they really mean. No, I legitimately do not think it is that. I think it is just that Orgotic is an asshole. And again, like, I know Dragula is the competition for that. In a reality TV show context, I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody saying, I don't think you deserve to be here. Fine. Whatever. It's the fact that the statement is being directed at JK, who Orgotic has had issues with episodes ago. When this happens, Jay even says, I thought we worked out our problems. Why are you coming at me like this now? The type of game that Orgotic and Throb are playing is a very different game than what Jay is playing. Throb and Orgotic are playing competition first and foremost. They're there to win the title, compete for the crown, do whatever they have to do to get to that point. Valid way to go about a competition. I think Jay's approach to this feels like they, yes, want to do well, want to succeed, want to try their best, but they also want to get along with the people around them and have like a conducive work environment and like have fun. Throb and Orgotic are not interested in that. This whole scenario just like really rubbed me the wrong way and set the tone of the episode to not be great. So the Boulets come up on the video screens. They're getting even bloodier still because of them killing the contestants in this weird like meta narrative. And the monsters learn that their challenge is this season's take on the sci-fi theme. In my opinion, this challenge heavily took inspiration from Coco's look in Titans for the sci-fi challenge, and you cannot convince me otherwise. They learn that they'll be taking a trip to Pleasure Planet X. They have to deliver an alien sex worker look. Valid work, we stand that, great idea. I think this is a fun challenge in terms of recontextualizing the narrative around sex work. They also have to then write a script and sell their services on the floor show. So this is quite literally an advertising branding challenge, like they would do on Drag Race. A show that the Boulet Brothers Dragula is nothing like, I swear. Just based on the challenge concept alone, this is quite literally made for Fantasia, especially knowing that she has a background in sex work. So going in, I figured she's gonna knock this out of the park. So we see some little moments in the lab. We find out that Neo Hulu is doing an alien tit-covered sugar baby. Rob is doing something that pulls from their burlesque background. We see Cynthia's sketch for her look, and just based on the sketch alone, I am worried because it was not good. And after all of that, Jay decides to take Throb aside. Jay feels the type of way about Throb saying, I'm taking you out to avenge Jarvis. So Jay decides to take Throb aside and ask about it, find out where their head is, and figure out what's going on. And Throb says flat out, nobody is my friend here. I'm here to win. We can be friends later. You took out Jarvis, who was my support system in this competition, so I'm gonna take you out. And once you're out, I'm going after somebody else. Again, valid way to compete. Totally fine with that. However, the two-faced nature of Throb that I'm really not a fan of. Literally 4 episodes previously, Throb flat out says to Jay, stop talking because you're causing all the arguments. Just sit and be quiet. Maybe reanalyze your behavior. Then the next week he pulls Jay aside to be like, hey, the reason I told you that, like, maybe let's talk about it because I care about you and blah, 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 blah. And they have this like seemingly nice sympathetic moment. And then this week, Jay is like, I thought we worked our problems out. I thought we were in a good place. I thought you were my friend here. So why are you coming at me now? And Throb is like, nope, I'm in game mode. And basically, you're dead to me. I've had stuff like that happen in real life where people who I've thought were good friends of mine and were my support systems out of nowhere do a complete 180. And seeing Throb do this, I just wasn't a fan. It was really uncomfortable once again. I don't know, it just felt gaslighty. So also in the Boulets podcast for this episode, they address criticisms of Throb and Throb's aggressive behavior regarding gameplay, which does not really happen until this episode. Call me a conspiracy theorist. Like I said earlier, I think they put this podcast episode out as early as they did to get ahead of criticisms regarding Throb in particular. And here's the thing, they specifically say in the episode, and I went back and listened to it a second time before I recorded this, they talk about criticisms regarding Throb's aggressive gameplay moves. So they gave viewers like 2 hours to watch it before they put this podcast out, and then said these critiques are coming out and people are saying that this is a problem. People are saying that his aggressive gameplay is a problem. That's not what the criticisms have been. The criticism regarding Throb has been his microaggressions toward Black contestants and how he navigates conversations with Jay in particular, and him coming for Fantasia for no reason basically every episode. What pisses me off is that instead of addressing the microaggressions, you have nothing about the microaggressions that people of color watching the show are drawing attention to and calling out. Instead of talking about that, instead of addressing that, they've written it off completely as it being misogyny as to why you would criticize Throb. The way they do it, they try to dance around and they're like, well, I don't want to be the one to say the M word, but I don't think people would be saying this about Throb if Throb were a man. No, they would still be saying this about Throb because a microaggression is a microaggression. Like, I don't understand what is so difficult to get about that. It is not hard to just listen to people of color, listen to Black people, and when they tell you that the thing that a white person is doing is an act of violence against them, whether it is intended or not, believe them. Like, it is not that difficult. Then they go back, they get ready, they all pretend to make orgasm noises. Floor show time. So starting off as always, we have the Boulets. I personally think that these looks are my favorite that they've worn all season because these feel the most classic Boulet but they also feel the most cohesive in terms of design elements. The last few weeks I've said I feel like they have maybe one too many little bits or pieces that don't quite go with everything, and they don't make sense together as a whole. These looks, top to bottom, make a lot of sense. This definitely feels like a boule take on Rocky Horror, so I was glad to see that at least. My favorite part about this is the hair though. These wigs are really nice. For our monsters this week, we are starting off with Throb. I love the color palette here. If there's one thing that Throb is going to do that I do consistently enjoy, it's the color story throughout his looks. They always make sense. They always work really well, and they look nice on stage, especially with all the black that he wears, in addition to these pops of really bright color. It all feels really intentional, which is something I personally appreciate. To me, this look didn't immediately read sex worker until the hole came into question, but even then, I still overall wasn't crazy impressed with the silhouette of this or the performance of the script. It was fine. It was definitely one of the better ones this week. I do agree with Throb being in the top 3. However, that was a pretty low bar to clear. Okay, next up we have Jay. Once again, great mug. I love this makeup. There's some really cool shapes, especially in the eye on this. I've said it before and I will say it again, Jay consistently has one of my favorite faces in this competition, week after week after week, because there's so many fun little things to look at. And I also just really appreciate precision in a makeup, and I think that this looks really great from here up. From here down, it's a mess. For me, if you know you're gonna be wearing a green bodysuit, I don't know why you would paint your neck black. It just didn't make sense. It broke up the silhouette. I would have done the neck like a dark green, maybe done the contour in black, but have it go into a green so it fades more naturally into this bodysuit. The outfit itself, quite literally, I think it is one of the worst actual garment piece outfits that we've seen. All of the mouths all over the body, I didn't quite understand what the point was. There's a way you can add other orifices to the body like this to make it gross, to make it read sex worker, but they felt a little too happenstance in terms of where they were placed. They didn't feel really intentional. The things that the Boules criticized Jay on this week were spot on, that it just does not have the level of craftsmanship and polish that Dragula expects. And there's nothing wrong with not having polish for this competition, because this is more of like a punk competition at its core. At least it's supposed to be. But I think as the competition goes on and they're expecting more polish and more high caliber looks, they're going to notice if you're not bringing 1000% and firing on all cylinders for these challenges. I will say though, Jay's been getting dog walked week after week after week by everyone else in this cast. So quite frankly, I would burn out and be ready to be done by this point, probably earlier, in all honesty. So considering Jay is dealing with getting treated like shit every episode, I think Jay did well. However, I just think of all of the looks this week, this is definitely the weakest one. Alright, next up we have Cynthia. I really like the fact that for this look, she took this idea of the stereotypical little green man alien design and dragged it up, exaggerated the proportions, used feathers for the lashes, the huge lips. I love the lips, they're so silly. The hair, I wasn't a big fan of. I didn't really quite like the brain piece that was mixed with this bodysuit. The worst part of this was the fact that the pants were not fitted for the legs. If it's supposed to be skin, it shouldn't be all wrinkly and bumpy like they were. It should have been smooth and flax. So if she would have done a stretch spandex instead of whatever fabric it was that she used for that bodysuit, I think that would have been more successful. I do think it is kind of shady though that they put her in the editing after Jay, because Jay is in a t-shirt and jean shorts, and then you've got Cynthia's character who is also in a t-shirt and Daisy Dukes. And it's so clear that just in terms of the outfit alone, Cynthia is miles ahead of Jay in this regard in terms of the degree of polish to it, the degree of finished stuff. Was I a fan of this? Not particularly, but I think the influencer angle was interesting. I think she had a cute script. However, you couldn't understand everything she was saying because she was muffled by the mouthpiece. So I think that detracted from it a little bit. Overall though, again, this is not a high bar to clear this episode because most of the contestants did not do well. I also thought her props looked really cheap and didn't like them. Next up we have Orgotic. I hated this. To me, the only thing that even remotely read as the challenge was the like sex doll face. The rest of it, to me, this does not read as an alien character at all. This does not read as sci-fi at all. I did not understand the point of view with it. They were supposed to be like a sex worker who exchanged their own skin for sex, so they were the customer, not necessarily the product being sold. So to me, that didn't make a lot of sense. Aesthetically, it's the same textures, the same color palettes, and the same techniques that we've seen Orgotic do week after week after week. But I want to see Orgotic like step outside of this like flesh tone black and red world just a little bit. For me, this was just a really big miss on the challenge in all regards. But immediately then going into somebody who hit the nail on the head in every single aspect of this challenge, we have Blackberry. This look, far and away, best look she's done in this competition, far and away the best look this week, far and away the best script in terms of writing, far and away the best performance of the script. And as somebody who has a degree and went to school for advertising and my background is in branding and writing commercials, this one was the most successful by a landslide. Compared to everything we've seen so far up to this point, this look felt the most on theme, and on top of that, this look also felt the most true to Blackberry's reference pool of being like a really big comic book nerd. I could see this character in a comic very easily. I loved all of the details in this. It was so fun to look at. The lights, I wasn't expecting the piston tits. I loved it. So good. Next up we have Fantasia, who comes out with a 3-piece strap-on, which like, work. We love to see that. The contacts she had in her eyes I thought were cool. I didn't quite get the eyes she had underneath her actual eyes. I didn't think that really worked as well. I thought that looked really tacky, in all honesty. And I know I know the judges were saying it was giving more aquatic, it was giving circus, it wasn't giving alien sex worker. What it was giving me was none of that. What it was giving me was Little Miss Tingle from Legend of Zelda, Kulu Limpa. However, I do think the colors of this outfit look great on her skin, which looks incredible. Really what took this out of being an alien is the headpiece. I think if she would have done something different there, it may have read a little bit better. Had she done like a full body color or like body paint or something, I think that would have taken it a little bit more into the alien realm than what we ultimately got. Her script, however, I loved, and I thought it felt like a very authentic like call girl commercial. It kind of reminded me of commercials you get on like extended cable at like 2 a.m. for sex phone lines. I was very here for that, and I think she delivered that part well. So next up we have Nia Hulu. This look definitely has the most visual interest, solely because it's the most complicated of everything we've seen so far. I really like the fact that her blush is all rhinestoned in the makeup. I think that's very cool. However, I think there's just one too many things going on. Maybe 2 or 3 things too many. Between all of the breasts, all of the dollar bills over the entire look, all of the details, all the feathers, I just think there are a few things that she could have decided to either scale back or just get rid of altogether, and it wouldn't have read as busy. Her script, I also didn't think was funny like the judges did. The best part of it was her concluding line though, where she was like, everything that I've just said is also available in Mandarin. But outside of that, I didn't laugh at anything anybody said in this. Blackberry did get a couple of teas out of me, now that I think about it. But everybody else, I thought, did really crappy on the writing of this challenge, which sucks. Collectively, this was a really weak challenge. I wasn't impressed by basically anything outside of Blackberry this week. She took that title this week and ran with it. Before we get into talking about the critiques, I want to take a second to talk about the Boulets and their little discussion. They are not happy. They're frustrated. They thought most people didn't do great this challenge. They have issues with quite literally every single person this week. And with Nia Hulu in particular, Like, there's a whole little rant about how she can't walk in the shoes and how unacceptable that is. And then in the critiques, they tell her that it was incredible. So they try to make this self-aware joke to be like, we see you fans who think this, and we read the comments. We know that you say this about us. Ha 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 ha, we laugh in your face. Drax specifically says that it is their job to be hypocritical. And I know she's being sarcastic here, but I genuinely think that they just are hypocritical. And they know that they're hypocritical, but they do it anyways because it makes people talk about the show. Like this, more content around the show, which makes the show more popular. And it's a cyclical vehicle, and it's gonna make me spiral. And then Swan even backs it up, saying that they should just start rewarding people for being dramatic. And then they make a joke about JK winning the challenge because it would be drama and it would piss people off. It just does not feel like the show they promised it would be at the beginning of the season. Each week as every new episode comes out, we are getting further and further away from focusing on the art of the contestants and more into the reality TV bullshit that they said that there wasn't going to be as much of this season. But yet, here we are, dealing with all this reality TV bullshit. What's the truth? To me, it felt like we're putting more of a focus on the art because we put a 360 runway on the floor show stage. But other than that, they haven't focused on it at all. And in fact, they've made the show even more of a reality TV show than it's been becoming. I don't know if it's because of other producers, if it's because of Shudder, whatever it is. To me, it just comes across like they're lying through the back of their teeth. Like they're sitting there smiling, being like, yes, this season is gonna be more focused on the art, more focused on the creatives, more focused on the process of them making their stuff. And then we get like not even 2.5, 3 minutes of them making their pieces, maybe 5 on a good day. And then everything else is drama, 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 drama. Imagine how tired we are out here. Like I fully just sat there and rolled my eyes through the vast majority of this episode, particularly these critiques. So the monsters come back and we get Judgment. Cynthia is deemed safe first, once again, placing right in the middle of the pack. I think they're very clearly setting up a storyline of her constantly being safe, never really standing out enough to be in the top. And I would not be surprised if she goes home next week. It's top 6 now after this episode. So if she gets eliminated at 6th, she would quite literally be at the exact middle of the elimination order. She's the only one without a win. She's gonna go home the first time she's up for elimination again, unless she manages to pull it off next week. They continue going down the line. Orgotic gets their critique that the face worked, but it was a weird concept. It wasn't alien enough, it wasn't spacey enough, and they didn't really understand it, but they loved it because Orgotic loved it. Give me a break. It was shit. I'm so tired of the Boulets making excuses for their favorites stay in the competition longer. If you do bad, put them in the bottom, put them up for extermination, and maybe even send them home. I think what frustrates me the most with this is that at the beginning of this very episode, we have Orgotic saying that Jay doesn't deserve to be there because Jay is not talented. And then we have now Orgotic being told, you did not do the challenge, where we don't think it really made sense for the challenge, whatever it was that you did. You did Hellraiser, not alien sci-fi, but we're gonna keep you anyways because you enjoyed what you did, and we can tell you were living for your own performance. Jay may not be up to snuff on a technical level as some of the other people in this competition, but at least Jay fucking does the challenges. Is it always the best interpretation of that challenge? No. But comparatively to Orc this week, Jay's look works better for the challenge than Orgotic's does. So I don't understand why Orgotic was not in the bottom 2. Throb gets the critique that it was a good concept, well thought out, it was a great performance, but some of the props didn't work. Again, recurring issue. So I hope it happens a 3rd time and gets him sent home. Jay is told that their look is good in theory, but a really poor execution. And then one of the guest judges immediately is like, I just want to ask, how are you feeling? And to me, that question alone sets them up to get knocked out. They critique Neo next. Neo's critiques also made me mad because like Orc, and now like multiple weeks now with Neo, they give Neo a pass because Neo's just so cute. Again, give me a break. They really are living up to the comment earlier about being hypocritical judges. In that same discussion, they go on and on about how Neo can't walk in her fucking shoes, and then when the critiques Drac, who is the one who has the main issue with the shoes and says it's inexcusable, turns to Neo and says, I was going to knock you for the fact that you can't walk in your shoes, but it also kind of worked for your character, it kind of worked for your performance, and so I came back around, and I loved it. I thought it was funny, it was cute, it was silly, it was camp. No, it wasn't. It was bad. If you can't walk in your shoes, don't wear the shoes. I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of them giving Neo a pass because her technical skill is good on other parts of her looks, or because she has good concept. You can't sit there and say, this is an inexcusable thing, and then turn around and then praise her for doing said inexcusable thing. Imagine how tired we are. It makes watching this show painful. Blackberry is next, gets great critiques, but then they bring up the we still don't know who Blackberry is question. And I think because Blackberry has been safe a lot of the past weeks, that's why it hasn't come up. Literally critiqued Blackberry last week and the week previously. Why didn't you bring this up then? Why are you waiting until the competition is more than halfway over and now you're bringing up this we still don't know who you are question when that was the thing you sent Onyx home for 2 episodes in? I think one of my biggest problems with the Boulets as judges is that they are not consistent judges, and they sit there and say, you know, we're not here to judge your art, we're here to judge your art as it fits to the challenge. Great, you do that. However, they clearly have stylistic preferences, and if it's not dirty enough, if it's not raw enough, if it's not punk enough, if it's not XYZ enough for them, they don't like it. And the second they said everything that Blackberry does is great, it's polished, and Blackberry is one of those performers who is a well-polished drag queen who can fit their drag to whatever the theme night they're doing at their club is. To me, that told me right there that they've written Blackberry off. And as far as I'm concerned, they've basically taken Blackberry out of the running despite giving them the win this week. I don't understand their thought process with this. I don't understand the way they judge. To me, it makes zero sense. Fantasia's critiques are that she has a great performance. The judges loved that. They loved aspects of it, but they didn't like the look. They felt it didn't really make sense for the challenge. It wasn't spacey, it wasn't alien enough. Like Orgotics, Throb and Neo are top 3, are called safe. Blackberry, clear winner this week. Congratulations, I agree. Again, 6 weeks in, I agree with the winner. They actually know how to pick the top person out of the lineup consistently. Good for them. And then Orgotic is called safe of the bottom 3, leaving Jay and Fantasia to face extermination this week. In my opinion, Fantasia should have been safe with that low placement, and it should have been Orgotic and Jay in the bottom 2. Jay, because the craftsmanship was not up to par, it was a really basic look that wasn't well put together and wasn't well executed. Orgotic's look didn't make any fucking sense, and the script didn't work. Fantasia's look did. Fantasia's script did. She was told her performance of the script she wrote was great, exactly what the challenge needed, and exactly what the challenge called for. They will save their favorites over people who actually do the fucking challenge. Like, what's the point of the competition then? If you just want to platform your favorites and let your favorites continue in the competition, why bring anybody else? Like, just bring your favorites, let them show off their looks, and give them the $100,000. That's what it feels like they're doing, especially because Orgotic was supposed to be on season 4. I'm over it. Realistically, I would have put all 3 of them up for extermination at the end of the day instead of having a bottom 2, because all 3 of them flopped. But if you're going to have a bottom 2, I think Fantasia did better than Orgotic did in terms of the performance part of the challenge and the writing part of the challenge. I don't think that's a wild take to have. For this week's extermination, Jay and Fantasia will be hooked up to a birth pain simulator. I don't know, this felt like a weird extermination challenge choice. I get the pleasure-pain duality. I get sort of the callback to season 2's alien birth challenge, especially in the way that they make them do it. So we're in the cauldron. We get this moment of Throb talking about Fantasia being in the bottom with Jay, and how Throb is like, oh no, I'm so sad. I think it's funny that they're in the bottom too. Of course you do. I wrote in my notes the second I found out who the bottom 2 was that this was Throb's wet dream. This is Throb's perfect world. The only thing that would have made this better for Throb is if Throb won the challenge and then had the 2 black people who he's been gunning for this whole competition up for extermination. I'm so tired of him. That talking head for me was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't think Cynthia or Blackberry are gonna make the finale. I think they're going to push Orgotic and Neo all the way to the end, and I would not be surprised if Throb is there also. And if that's the case, I probably won't even watch the finale, in all honesty. I'll just look and see what the looks are, and I'll see who wins, and I'll call it a day. At this point, Fantasia's the only one I want to win, and if Fantasia doesn't make it to the finale, to me, there's no point in watching it. I said what I said. I keep saying it, but I really am just so frustrated with this show. I thought 2 weeks ago was the most I'd ever been frustrated with the show because it was too much like Drag Race. This week I'm frustrated with it because it's just a bullshit episode. So let's get into the extermination this week. Jay and Fantasia are wheeled in like autopsy bins, like the metal things they do the autopsies in, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a coroner. Why? Why are they in the autopsy container? For what reason? What does that have to do with giving birth? What does that have to do with being put in a pain simulator? Unless they're just trying to contain them if they're gonna like flail. We see Israel doing this to Jay, but not to Fantasia, but Israel is like physically holding Jay down during this and putting weight on them from above while the pain simulator is going, but we don't see that happening with Fantasia. So I don't know if that also happened with her or not, but if it didn't, that's weird to me. Just a little bit. Fantasia's dealing with the pain, but she's being campy. She's performing through it. Jay is just in pain. So I think it's very clear that Fantasia has definitely, I guess, won this extermination over Jay, especially too because Jay taps out. Jay says, I'm done, this is as far as I can go, and Fantasia apparently doesn't, according to the podcast. So because Jay tapped out first, that was enough. I will say though, there's a few reaction shots that are like shot from like this angle, that's like shot from above and off to the side of Fantasia, and all you can see of her are these like little eyes that are too low on her head compared to where her actual eyes should be as she's like flailing around. Once again, she's giving cartoon character in these camera shots, and I love it. It's so funny to me. That part did make me giggle, at least. I also have to say I really loved Fantasia's closing line of this, saying that after this, you can call her Fantasia Royale Mama because she's mother, you know. So unfortunately, JK ends up being the exterminated contestant this week, and they die, not with a chest burster from Alien, but an ass burster, who then eats Jay. Work. Killer turds from outer space, coming to some dark corner of the internet near you soon. I did come around to Jay by the time they were fully eliminated from the competition, but what is the storyline going to be next week? Because Jay has been the storyline the entire season. Where the microaggressions going to go towards from Throb? Are they gonna get directed at Fantasia? Are they gonna then pivot and start going to Blackberry too? I hope not, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did, which sucks. So my expectations for next week are not great, because as the show is becoming more like Drag Race, they're pulling in more Drag Race fans, but it's becoming Drag Race. So it's going to end up with the same formula of Drag Race. So I made a community post about this after I watched the episode. We are going to finish doing reviews in this style for this season, but next season, since they got renewed for season 6, yippee, we're not doing this. We're not doing full reviews. We're just gonna talk about the looks, and that's it. Because, y'all, I'm putting myself through a lot to get these episodes out each and every week. I'm putting myself through a lot of emotional turmoil to be this upset. Like, I love the challenges. I want people to succeed. I want queer art to be platformed. I very easily could not engage with it, but I'm just tired of being told that I just have to accept it for what it is. We've only got 4 episodes left after this. Thank fucking God. Frankly, if somebody hacked Shudder and dropped the rest of the episodes, I would get in drag and I would record reactions to all of them in one sitting and just be finished. because I'm so over this. Like, Dragula used to be fun to watch. It's not fun to watch anymore. And it's not because of me turning it into content. The spark and the magic that Dragula had, especially in like season 2, to me is gone. So much for focusing on the art, am I right? That being said, let's take a second to actually focus on some art. Namely, my play-along look for the Monsters of Rock Floor Show challenge this season. Hi, Editing Bay Chara here. Also made a community post about this, but I don't have it done yet. I've been way too busy to work on it this week, so it'll be in the next episode review, hopefully along with episode 5. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. We'll see. The joys of being a one-woman operation. So that's a wrap for another frustrating episode of Dragula Season 5. We'll be back again next week. As always, if you like hearing me rant and complain about this show, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all of the things. I genuinely hope that the way I want to approach content for drag TV shows in the future will leave me feeling much lighter and happier and having more fun with this, because quite frankly, this is not fun anymore. I'm also just very busy and very stressed out all of the time, and this is not helping. If you want to see me actually have some fun though, be sure to follow me over on Twitch, because the new Pokemon DLC will be coming out next week, and I can't wait. So we're gonna be playing through that and shiny hunting, and it's gonna be so fun, and I'm very excited. But before we go, don't forget to stay kind, stay queer, and until next time, toodle boo!